which takes us on to item 11, performance, finance and risk from August, pages 15 to 41 of the pack. And Councillor Ellis is proposing that. Councillor Leppard is seconding that. Councillor Ellis, do you want to introduce the item?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Swords. Very happy to be presenting the latest performance, finance and risk report, which covers the period of August. And we've also got some updated off-log data for Harlow as well, which is part of this report. Basically doing very well across the board. We've got we're pretty much rated going well, green, on almost all of our metrics, and as Councillor Swords mentioned, that includes the number of empty council homes and turnaround rates, missed bin collections, which I'm very pleased with. We've got on top of, and that's much better, much improved now. Processing benefits claims, changes in circumstances. There's good news across the board, and I know that officers have put a lot of work into to getting in that position. So I'm very pleased about that. There's two metrics on here which are marked amber, which means for awareness. That is the number of working days lost to staff sickness and the percentage of invoices paid within 30 days, which has been teetering around sort of that figure for a while. On staff sickness, although it's something that we're keeping an eye on, it's pretty much as expected when it's benchmarked against similar organisations, and nothing significantly out of the average to be too concerned about. And there is action that the council is taking to try and get on top of this, such as offering winter fuel jobs and putting in place support for staff. It might be helpful to point out, and this was something I hadn't realised till I was looking at it this week, that the stats for this metric are cumulative. So although it might look like it's increasing month on month, it's actually not. That is, it's adding up the total number of sick days lost that year. And I know that there's been questions in the past on how we present cumulative data, so it's a bit easier to see and scrutinise. And I'm going to have a look at this one and how we present that for future months to make sure that it's easier to see whether we're performing well or not. The other thing is the invoices paid within 30 days, and I know this is something we've discussed previously. One thing we've been looking into and discussing is essentially a lot of the delays on invoices are actually the way that they're logged in the first place. So if we dispute something, that either wrong itemisation of an invoice or the wrong amount on it, and we go back to the company to query that, the clock is starting straight away. So it may appear like there's more delays than there are. And also just to reassure that when there are these delays, they're almost always sort of big IT companies or utility companies. It's not sort of dealing with small contracts with local suppliers. There's one metric which requires attention that's marked on here, which is the number of customer complaints. I've got another report that I'll be presenting shortly on customer complaints, so I'll talk a bit more in detail to that then. But essentially, it's marked for our attention, but having looked into this, the vast majority of those are actually only a day or two over the complaint deadline, and if you take out the ones that are just one day over, would be in the green. And the delays are usually caused by complex cases that just take a bit longer to work through, and the council does keep in touch with residents when there are delays. So it's certainly something we're keeping on top of and looking at, but it's not something that should cause too much concern. And going back to what I said at the beginning, really good performance across the board otherwise. So I think we should be very happy about that. The latest off-log data shows our comparisons against similar districts that off-log picks out, and a median of all the districts in England. Summaries, headlines, we've got very healthy reserves and core spending power. Our planning appeals are slightly higher than the median on some fronts, but we have very few appeals, so even one or two that's out of the ordinary on that does skew the figures quite a lot. Our number of upheld complaints is slightly higher than the median, but this is about a year out of date, the data on that. And as I'll come on to in the next report, we've put in a number of new systems in place to improve that process, which I would hope to see reflected in future months' performance. Our recycling contamination rate has dropped. I think some of the councillors were interested in that last year, and our recycling rate overall has stayed fairly static, but we have been taking part in a number of promotional activities, particularly of Essex County Council, to educate residents on the importance of recycling. And I think that's all on the performance front. So I'll hand over to Councillor Leppard to talk through the financial section.
Thank you very much. To turn the microphone on.
God. Is that it? Yes? Can you all hear me? Good. Thank you, Hannah. This report covers a period from 1st of April until 31st of August, so we're looking at 5 months. So it's very important that everyone recognises this is an ongoing exercise, and we need to exercise some caution in drawing conclusions at this stage. That said, with that caveat in mind, the forecast estimations are very positive, and we should be quite content that we are very much on track overall. Our general fund, which is detailed in Appendix 6, is showing a forecast surplus of 344,000, which is something that we should be quite pleased with. It is an achievement in what have been very adverse circumstances, nationally and pressures locally. This has been largely achieved. The main items have been reduced business rates and energy costs for about 242,000. As well as, and this is very welcome, increased green waste subscriptions and recycling, plus lower than expected inflation. That's added another 227,000 to the good. Turning now to the housing revenue account, the HRA, this is forecasting a surplus of around 85,000, which, given the amount of work that's being carried out on repairs, which are well on schedule, is very encouraging. We had some additional costs of about 207,000 for alarm systems, maintenance in flat blocks, and void property securities, which, as well as 74,000 losses, which were not forecast originally, owing to the decanting of Sycamore Fields and the Weir. However, these were more than offset, and I suppose for once we must give some credit on this one to the opposition, by the new rules of the new Labour government regarding allowing councils to retain 100% of the right to buy receipts, which had previously been 50%. The consequence of this is pretty immediate, given that it reduces our borrowing costs for new builds by 50%, and consequently the interest rates borne upon that. So that is expected to save about over 300,000. The non-housing capital programme, also, I'm pleased to say, is currently forecasting a modest surplus of about 17,000. Overall, the programme is on track, and one of the items that has affected this favourably has been the reprofiling of 120,000 for the telephone system. There were higher roofing costs than forecast at Catherine's and Slacksbury Hatches for a total of around 230,000, but these were balanced by lower forecast costs for the Lady Shop Pavilion and various resource management savings. I should just mention that there is a 30,000 budget allocation to be instated for the area of strategic growth and regeneration, which is to be covered by grant funding, and it will come out of the neighbourhood renewal fund. This expenditure is incurred through the removal of street furniture in Market Square. Turning now to the housing capital programme in Appendix F, here we have a modest overspend of 118,000, attributable entirely to an inflationary uplift to the HDS services agreement. Otherwise, the programme is fully on track regarding major roof repairs and other external repairs works, and also the important, very important, new homes build programme, which is very much on track. Okay?
Just turn the microphone off.
Yes.
Yeah, the other one. There you are. Very good. Questions? Councillor Morrison.
Thanks very much. I have a few questions, Chair. Good idea. Okay. We noticed that there has been a slight improvement, and Councillor Ellis has referred to this, in the payment of invoices. That's a slight improvement. And the explanation given is that there has been a change or changes in the process. So what are the changes? Can you tell us about the changes and whether we anticipate that improvement to continue?
Yeah, I can pick the question up. So, yeah, you will recall at Cabinet in September, there was a more detail given on this, on the changes that were proposed by Councillor Harbour at the time, to the process of more in the designation. And it's important to note that actually the vast majority of invoices are paid within 30 days. As Councillor Ellis already referenced in her introduction, one of the issues that have been identified is that if we're sent an invoice that is incorrect, the time is already underway. So in terms of allocation, that has been changed or is being changed, in the process being changed at the moment, so that the statistics that are reported to Cabinet are much more realistic in terms of identifying where there truly is a problem. So I don't think that is of great concern to the Cabinet, because actually there was an issue, it's being addressed, it's improving as a result of that, and we shall see over the next month or so whether that continues to be the case. But I don't know if anyone wishes to add. No?
Just to say that it's a difference between whether you essentially dispute something or query something, and if you're just clarifying a figure and it takes time for perhaps a big company to get back to you, then that can cause a significant delay and is not necessarily a fault of the council if you're waiting for a big IT company or utility company to process that. But yeah, there's been some work going on already, and I'd like to see more, and that's something we're working on.
Further questions, Councillor Morrison?
Yes, excuse me. Thank you. So we can expect further progress, I think, improvement. On page 21, I spot, I think it's item 17 on that page. Main reason for the favourable position is due to changes in legislation regarding retained capital receipts. So I wonder, for my benefit, could you give a more detailed explanation of what exactly is meant by that?
Councillor Lepard?
Yes. I've done it wrong again. Can't we just have on off?
You need to press the one on the right-hand side. You're certainly not to the left.
But not on the left, push the one.
I'll take the question, it's fine.
Oh, right, I've got it, okay. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morrison. I tried to cover that in my brief talk here. We're talking about the right to buy receipts. So when the council sells a house, let's say it's 100, they sold a house for 100. Under previous rules, 50% could be retained by the council for new builds, and the other 50% went back to the Treasury. The new Labour government has now said councils can use 100%. So what that means is, before we only received 50%. So to build another house that costs 100, we'd have to go and borrow 100, and 50 rather, and the 50 would incur interest costs. So that would be an additional cost for us. Under this new legislation, we cease to have to borrow that, and therefore do not need to pay such interest. And that interest is the saving. Does that explain it?
Microphone off. Yeah.
No. Thank you, Councillor Lepard. I knew that you would enjoy talking about that some more. It is brilliant news, isn't it? How pleased are you?
We're just coming to questions. I'm sure Councillor Leppard has already explained how pleased he is. So, do you want to move on to your next question, Councillor Morrison?
It's worth mentioning several times. Right, now, my next question concerns abandoned calls. I asked about this last time, and we have had some additional information. The trend is positive, it is positive, but 15% is still quite high, I think. Earlier today, I asked a member of staff if that's because we have too few members of staff, and the answer is possibly, but that would be at only peak time, so it would be difficult then to have at other times when it's quieter, members of staff who are insufficiently occupied. Incidentally, I did sit in on some of the calls, members of staff who are dealing with those calls, some very complex, very, very sensitive. Members of staff doing a brilliant job, really excellent job. So could you explain what is in place to assure, or to do as much as we can, or to ensure, I should have said, that those callers who are abandoned callers, who are not able to get through because the lines are already busy, are encouraged to call again, because some of them may simply give up.
Well, just to clarify, Councillor Morrison, Councillor Ellis can come in, but every abandoned call gets a call back the same day. So every single individual who calls the council, if they abandon the call, the council rings them back that same day. And if you went to the call centre, you'll see on the wall there is a huge screen which has how many people are waiting in the queue, the average wait time for that call, how many abandoned calls, the wait time between their abandoned call and when they get a call back. But Councillor Ellis may wish to add to that.
Everything Councillor Saws said, but also just I think it's worth highlighting that in this pack it's also got the call wait time on here, and it's 3 minutes, which I mean it's very frustrating calling some customer services and you're waiting for a long time on the phone. I don't think that 3 minutes is too unreasonable amount of time to wait. Of course, it would be great if we could pick up every call instantaneously, but then you'd also have a lot of staff waiting around unnecessarily when there were slower times. So I think that and that has gone down from, I think, 3 minutes, 30 seconds earlier on in the year. So I think we've got a pretty reasonable call pick-up time. And as Councillor Sword said, if they cannot wait for that 3 minutes for any reason, then they will be getting a call back.
Yes, on page 28, I note the words "no calls for concern" in relation to the number of successful non-major planning application appeals. Well, that may be so, but some of us were quite concerned when we noticed a spate of successful appeals occurring over quite a short period of time. And it wasn't just one, it was several. In fact, the concern was such that our erstwhile chief executive undertook to investigate. Was there some sort of result to that investigation? What was the outcome? Was there an outcome?
I think Councillor Gunn will tell you why you need not be concerned.
Sorry, just to repeat that, there was an investigation by the chief executive, you say? Not aware of that, but there has been a small number of applications that haven't gone our way, but the volumes have been very small. I am looking at that to see if there's any trends, but the volume is really very small indeed. I mean, for example, on this paper we have major planning applications at 50%. Literally, there were two. One of them went the wrong way. Well, in terms of these reports anyway. So I can assure Councillor Morrison that I'm keeping a very close eye on performance of planning, and I'm quite satisfied that there's a very small number of cases that have come with the result against us. and I don't think she's got any great cause for concern. I'm happy to take this up outside of the meeting, though, especially if there has been some sort of investigation that I am not aware of.
Just for clarity, there was no investigation. Further questions, Councillor Morrison?
No, I think
No,
I should
very good.
stop at that point, let somebody else have a chance.
Okay, jolly good. Councillor Gunn, you had a question.
I did, thank you. And Councillor Ellis, the item I wanted to ask about was the staff sickness absence, which you've highlighted in your comments, and to start by congratulating the Council on proactive measures such as the flu jab scheme. I'm sure we'd all want to know that the staff that support the work we do are being protected in that way. You've mentioned that the cumulative nature of the data makes it quite difficult to interpret. Last year we did go slightly over the performance target. I've essentially got two questions, one of which is based on the current data, does it look like we're going to go under target this year? And secondarily, do you anticipate that we would have clearer data in time for the next report next month, and how might that data appear?
So yes, we should be on target for the year. It's looking that way at the moment. In terms of the data, I'm very open to suggestions from other members if there are any. Something that I've been discussing with officers is whether we look at what the number should be for that month, if it is a cumulative month, so take it as a proportion of the year, and perhaps mark it as a percentage over or under the target, and then mark that as a RAG rating, as a way of showing that, because I think it can be confusing to read. Sometimes also when it's broken down into quarters, sometimes when it's into months, to know, to track through what the target would look like for each month or quarter. So it's something I'm looking at and intend to have resolved before the next cabinet, but I'm open to suggestions on how that's. And there's some more on the sickness. There's the personnel committee is going to have some breakdown of that, and that's something we've been looking at.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you. My question is on page 29, the household waste recycling rate. It says there the council carries out to educate and promote activities around waste recycling services, etc. People often ask me, they get stickers on their bins telling them what to put in their bins, but what they ask me is what happens to the stuff that goes in the bins? How is it recycled? And I think if they could have a bit more knowledge around that, they'd be more inclined to recycle things.
Councillor Pearce will take that.
So, very interesting you bring that question up, because this is something that we're actually going to be working on with comms coming up to obviously the Christmas season as well. We actually want to actually make it more understandable, more coherent about recycling, and to talk about going into the Christmas period that actually our recycling rates actually fall because we have contamination as well. So there's a whole piece that we'll actually be going forward to give our residents, the general public, some more detailed insight to recycling.
Councillor Griggs, I think you had a question, or perhaps two.
Yes, I just want to look at the, so it's page 35, the non-housing capital programme major variances. The portfolio holder referred to some of the underspends on some of the projects compensating for overspends on the others. Underspends are all very nice, but it doesn't explain why there's such vast overspends on some of these projects. What went wrong, I guess, is the answer. You've got Seleksbury Hatch up 60%, Catherine's has doubled, the 40% increase on the Bush Fair house offices, but the most extraordinary one, Bush Fair Sports Pavilion, projected initially at 2,000, went up to 65,000. What on earth is going wrong with the projections? Who's getting this wrong?
Yeah, I can take the question. That's no problem at all. So the first thing I would say is the non-housing capital programme projections this year are the closest, i.e. the smallest variances that the council's had on non-housing capital programme in 24 years. So I don't think that is a bad thing. I think that's a very positive thing. What is reported in this pack is a tiny amount of the projects that the council was delivering on the non-housing capital programme this year. Indeed, in terms of value, it's the biggest non-housing capital programme the council has, I think, ever, but I may be corrected on that, but it's worth tens of millions of pounds across the piece. So I'm more than happy to get Councillor Leppard to write to you about individual projects, but take the Bush Fair Pavilion, for instance. There are two things that happened. One, it was reprofiled into this financial year instead of the next financial year, because the project we're intending to deliver something slightly different, which is very exciting on that site. Hence the reason for it. So in terms of individual schemes, I'll get Councillor Leppard to write to you about each and every one if you so wish, but it'll be an extremely long letter.
I'm still on. You will not be surprised that I'm going to return to rough sleeping figures. It's interesting, in previous cabinets I have complained that the graph charts don't work for me with the colour stuff on them because of my colour blindness. This time it's testing my myopia with the size of the text that it's written in, notwithstanding the fact I can increase it on the screen. However, so my question is, we only got a number up to August 24 on that report. What is that, a percentage, an average for August, that number of 14 rough sleepers?
Okay, so I know this is explained at scrutiny, it's been explained each month. So the first thing to say, why is it a number for August? That's because this is the Performance, Finance and Risk Report for August. It's the verified numbers, as you'll know. So in terms of some of the numbers that you've quoted have been unverified figures. The figures we report are the verified figures, hence the slight disparity. There is a point taken, I think, in the month, hence this being reported. We have that data on a daily basis, each and every day, about the rough sleeping figures. Most important thing, I think, is are we effectively dealing with that as well as possible? We took the proposed new homelessness and rough sleep framework through scrutiny a couple of weeks back, going out to consultation. We've done an awful lot of stakeholder engagement on that, and I am very confident about what the council does in terms of rough sleeping and homelessness, and I think a number of councils would do well to follow suit.
As you know, I was at that scrutiny committee and raised this very point, but I do it here at Cabinet because it's a wider audience and the webcast will get out there and hopefully explain to people what's going on a little more. At scrutiny, there was an undertaking to look at working with Streets to Homes to improve the methodology of how rough sleepers are verified, because I got yesterday's figures, and they are significantly different to what we've got there, as you will know if you've had the report as well. So has anything been done in terms of that undertaking at this stage, or if not, when can we expect to do that? Because obviously the one thing that is really important, I think everyone will agree, is getting the numbers right is the only way to improve the situation, and it also will assist with the RSI funding that can come forward to help with it.
There's a meeting with Streets to Homes on Wednesday. There's a meeting with Streets to Homes on Wednesday. Further questions? Councillor Carter.
Yeah, my next question is on page 30. It's about street cleaning. The cost of emptying bins has gone up 73,000. I would believe that that's due to the increase in the number of bins we've got in the town, but could you verify that for me, please?
Councillor Pearce can take that.
In terms of the increase that we've actually got on the waste is to do with the additional bins that we actually put across the actual town.
Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on rough sleeping, if I may. I know a scheme you're particularly enthusiastic about is these modular homeless homes, which are coming, and we approved the application in the Development and Management Committee recently. Are you able to provide us an update when those will come online, or give us a rough timescale? And do you anticipate it will make a big impact in reducing homelessness or rough sleeping?
So the scheme you're referring to is the first of its type in Harlow. We've never had such a thing. We expect it to be on site in the coming weeks. In terms of where we are at the moment, you mentioned the decision that the Development Management Committee took. The applicant is currently discharging the conditions that you put on the permission. So, yeah, we expect it to be on site in the coming weeks. I think it's a very exciting thing for Harlow in terms of that provision. Is it going to solve our homelessness problem? Absolutely not. But what it should hopefully do is, one, help a number of individuals over a very long period of time of really high quality accommodation, but two, should give us a good indication as to whether that's a sensible thing to roll out more widely. Councillor Edwards?
Yes. Page 24, paragraph 29. It says SR13 resource capacity. If the council does not have the appropriate resources to match the delivery requirements, it cannot deliver its priorities. This score has increased due to recent changes within the senior leadership team, and actions are in place to address the increased risk. Well, given that we currently do not have a chief executive, we do not have a director of housing, we do not have a director for strategic growth and regeneration, we do not have a director for governance and corporate services, and the director for finance has currently been unavailable for work for some time. Given that's a situation that we find ourselves in, and that's been the situation now for some months, can I ask what exactly the plans are to address the actions that are going to be taken to address the increased risk? Could you please spell them out for us, please?
Yep, very happy to. The first thing I'd say is the report is referring to August, so the information you quote is wrong. The structure chart you quote is wrong. And in terms of the steps we're taking, they were considered by full council last week in great detail and approved. I'm absolutely confident this council, as this performance report has just spelled out to you, is delivering for residents. If you wish to draw back to any performance you wish to see improved, more than happy to have a conversation about that. In terms of the risk register, as I say, this is referring to August. The changes you reference have been since August. And like I say, the structure chart you reference is incorrect as well. Further questions?
Yes. In which case, can you spell out for us exactly what is the senior management structure at the moment, please?
Yeah, I refer you to the council report of last Thursday. Further questions?
Yes.
Councillor Gunn?
Can you spell out? Can you spell out for the public who are listening to this exactly what the situation is with regard to the senior management team at the moment, please?
More than happy to do so. The senior management of this council is taken collectively as the Local Government 2000 Act sets out. We are meeting as the executive of the council this evening to consider these matters. The structure that we have in place is changing as that report detailed. The council is meeting its statutory requirements in terms of statutory officers. And like I say, I think what residents care most about is how we are spending their money and what services they are getting for it. This report spells out we are spending their money well and they are getting improving services for it. So I think that residents will be abundantly clear what they care most about and the questions you ask, there may be a slight divergence between the two. The council has a very strong senior management in place. We are restructuring. There will be more news on that shortly. You considered a report on those matters last Thursday in a confidential session, which is why I'm not able to repeat those things to you now. I don't think there's any more questions on the matter, so I'll come to Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Councillor Swords, and apologies for the brief delay in coming round to me there. I did want to draw attention to the risk register and ask how long it's been in place, why it was brought in, and whether having this map of risks as they rise and in some cases fall is useful for us and serves to improve the transparency with which this council operates.
Mr. Ellis, do you want to take that?
Yeah, happy to take this one. So we introduced this as part of the performance, the monthly performance, so that all members could see what the work we're doing and scrutinising it, and also to help the cabinet to inform our decision making and work with officers to keep council services as good as they can be. Everything has an inherent risk to it, everything we do, and in many of the cases we've managed those risks down by the actions we take, and the reason it's reported like this is so that when risks increase or change, we know about it, we share that, and we take action to deal with it. So I think the reporting of it in itself and the way that we present this and talk about it is entirely why it's there, and can only benefit the way we work as a council.
Further questions? Councillor Saggers.
Thank you, Chair. We've raised at the Audit and Standards Committee SR10 on a number of occasions. I welcome its change to delivering internal training. I was just wondering if there would be any bulletin for members to remind them of their statutory GDPR, data protection, cybersecurity updates until that training comes on board to all members.
I think you have just highlighted the power of the Audit and Standards Committee in terms of the risk register of the council, and I'll ensure that all members are well up to speed on the training that's available to them. Further questions? Councillor Edwards.
In the...
We're just considering item 11. Is your question on item 11?
Yeah, item 11 is the performance reports, isn't it? And this relates to performance, published in Harlow Times recently. Yeah. And at that point in the Harlow Times, it was saying, satisfaction with the council's housing services approach. Sorry, I just want to find the point. Excuse me just for a moment. Here we go. Satisfaction with Harlow Council's housing service approach to handling complaints, 30%. In terms of the, excuse me, I should have brought my glasses with me, my apologies. Proportion of homes which all required fire risk assessments have been carried out.
Councillor Edwards.
16.4%.
No, you can't just keep talking. We're considering the August Performance, Finance and Risk Report, not the portfolio holder decision that was taken on the tenant satisfaction measures. If you wish to ask about them, there is an item on the agenda this evening for you to consider them specifically.
Thank you.
Jolly good. Further questions? No? Comments? No comments? No. In which case, Councillor Edwards, comment? Yep.
Yeah. Comment. I just find it amazing, really, that you can have the gall, Councillor Sawyers, to sit here and pretend to the people of Harlow that somehow or other everything is wonderful in the state of Denmark with regard to Harlow Council. We currently have no senior management team to speak of. As I was saying earlier, we currently have no chief executive, we have no director of housing, we have no director for strategic growth, and we have no director for governance. And yet somehow or other we seem to be pretending that everything is going on as normal and everything is getting. So I just wonder when, if ever, you're actually going to come out and tell the people of Harlow exactly what the situation is with regards to the management structure, and when exactly you're going to say what the plans are for addressing the situation.
Very good. I'll come back to that. Councillor Charles, I think you had a comment.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really important to get serious now. And what is really important is to recognise a couple of things. The first point is this. I see, as do my colleagues in this administration, day to day, the outstanding contribution of officers and individuals in this community that want to make Harlow a better place. So in that vein, when we're talking about the work that this council is doing, I think we need to be conscious of that in the way that we frame things. Our officers are here to serve the people of this town, and they do it to a very high standard, and that is reflected in the performance reports that we've just discussed tonight. To throw innuendo, certain councillors throwing innuendo, they know better. They know better than that. What we're here to do as an administration is to ensure that this council responds to the priorities of this town. And what is reflected in these reports tonight is that we are doing a good job.
Further comments? Councillor Ellis?
Just really to second what Councillor Charles says, and I think suggesting that there's any sort of, these are agreed metrics that we mark ourselves to, suggesting there's any sort of fabrication of those, it's quite clearly rated for everyone to see and look at, and that's a lot of work that officers put in to get that done, and to perform as we do, and to record it as they do. So just really to emphasise what Councillor Charles says, I'm very grateful for the work they do, and I think it's quite wrong to suggest that there's any misleading nature of those statistics, or there's any fabrication of those statistics, which were put together by this council for consideration of the Cabinet.
Councillor Leppard, I think you had a comment.
Yes, I suppose making scurrilous innuendo is easy. Nevertheless, we've presented tonight facts. This is a performance report based on facts. There's no manipulation or playing around. To say that is implying that officers and cabinet members are acting in collusion to the detriment of the people of Harlow, which is absolutely outrageous and should not be tolerated. Thank you.
Councillor Saggers, you had a comment?
My comment would be that the performance report has been viewed at scrutiny in September and will be viewed again in December and February. And the Audit and Standards Committee have reviewed the risk register twice and will be doing so again in November. So a member can go to those committees and ask a question via their members.
Very good. Any further comments? No, you've had your comment. Standing order is very clear on that. Any further comments? No, very good, in which case I'll wrap the item up. What the Performance, Finance and Risk Report for August demonstrates is that the Council's finances are in a surplus. Residents are paying less council tax for that. Performance across the board is improving. There is nothing more socialist, I would suggest, than focusing on nothing in terms of performance of the council. Not one question, not one comment about the performance of the council, instead focusing on which deck chairs are in which places. I think the thing that residents care far more about is not who sits in which offices, it's what services are they getting for the council tax they are paying. As this report spells out very clearly, as the off-log data spells out very clearly, as every single appendice spells out very clearly, we have bigger capital programmes than we've ever had, and we're delivering them. We have clearer missions than we've ever had, we're delivering them. Performance is improving across the board. Both on the General Fund and the HRA, we are projecting a surplus. Again, as I started with, there is nothing more socialist than talking purely about what goes on behind closed doors, and not one comment or question on the finances. You have an opposition that will write pages in the local press, come to a meeting about the finances of this council and ask not a single question about it, make not a single comment about it. One about government policy, or look at the performance of the council, make not one suggestion on the way forward. This council is delivering for residents, it's improving month on month, and I would suggest the opposition would do far better to focus on that than what they may think will score them political points. So I absolutely commend the work that the council staff are doing day in, day out. I absolutely commend the fact that residents are paying less council tax for those services, and I absolutely commend the fact the services they are receiving, as this report spells out very clearly, are improving. And with that, we shall come to the recommendations, A to E. I would ask which way the opposition will vote, but of course they don't get a vote. So recommendation A to E, are they agreed by the Cabinet?
Agreed.
Jolly good.